Previously on this channel. Guys, I'm back after 2 weeks of absence. Dear Diary, it's been 7 days since I have seen the sun. Without it, I cannot hope to make a video. Dear Diary, it has been another 7 days that I have been plagued with a horrible disease. I fear I may never recover. I can breathe! No. They need me. Hello everyone, thank you again for joining me. I am thrilled to be recording again after yet another hiatus. Between the weather and being sick, it's been really hard to film. And the weather is still not perfect today. I'm sitting here looking out my window watching it snow right now, but I didn't want to wait any longer before getting back to you and filming again. So without any further ado, let's get into it. So you want to write a novel or a short story, but you don't know what you want it to be about. It's a very common problem that a lot of writers face. But today, I'm going to be giving you some really good ways to come up with killer book ideas. Before I jump into it, I want you to remember that the most important thing that your story needs to do is evoke feeling. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter what your book is about. What matters is that it makes the reader feel something. It's like the old adage, people don't remember what you say, they remember how you make them feel. Yeah, people will remember the plot of an amazing book, and if you can make your plot the best it can be, that's great. But at the end of the day, the emotional journey of your story is what's going to be most important. Everyone knows what The Lord of the Rings is about, but people who have actually read the books and watched the movies have an unforgettable connection to the story because it's such a strong emotional tale. So just keep in mind that no matter how twisty your story is, it needs to connect with the reader. Another common misconception is that you should write what you know. Trust me, I'm going to make a full video about the lies that you'll hear as a writer. But one of the most popular ones is write what you know. This is nonsense. If you want to write a story about being a wizard, but you've never been a wizard, who cares? Write the story about being a wizard. It just means that you'll need to do a little more research. A better piece of advice is write what you love. Write what you love to read. Write what you love to write. Of course, there's a balance to that, and I'll get to a little bit more of that later in the video. But if you really want to write a love story set in Europe that's ravaged by war, knock yourself out. A lot of the advice that I'm going to give in this video, you do not have to take in any specific order. In fact, you won't be doing them all, you'll probably be doing one or the other. But one thing that you should always do, and the thing that you should do first, is pick a genre. If you pick a genre and then write a story, the genre will more or less help you determine what the story is going to be and what is going to be in the story. This is because of genre expectations. It's unavoidable. People have certain expectations for certain genres. When I make a video about genres, I'll dive a little bit more into it, but if you're going to write a mystery novel and the detective does not catch the killer at the end, you're doing it wrong. Yeah, sure, you're subverting expectations, but at that point you could argue that you're subverting expectations for the sole purpose of subverting expectations. Looking at you, Rian Johnson. Unless you're an established author with a dozen books under your belt, very few people are going to forgive you for misleading them, dragging them down a path of 90,000 words, getting to the end, and then finding out that it was all a sham, that you were never going to give them what the genre promises them. If you want your story to be sellable, you have to pick the genre first. It is so much easier to go from genre to story than taking a story that you've already written and retrofitting it into a genre. You'll have to go back, change stuff around to make sure it fits genre expectations, or worse, you won't care and you'll just put it in a specific genre and it won't meet any of those expectations. It won't have a genre. It'll be this weird mixture of genres that nobody really knows what it is, and therefore people will see it on Amazon or in bookstores and be like, I can't tell if I'm gonna like this book. I love romance books, and it says that these two people love each other, but it certainly doesn't look like they love each other, so people won't be able to see your book and instantly connect with it when they love a certain genre. So pick the genre first, write the story next. Next, when it comes to picking story ideas, a tried and true way of generating story ideas is doing writing prompts. Before I was writing this series, I wasn't sure what I wanted to write, so I did writing prompts. I did 5 or 6 of them before I came across one that just said, write what happens when the lights go out. And what I wrote was just a few hundred words. None of those words actually made it into the book, but it set a scene that I fell in love with. Now, I put it down and I kept doing other things, you'll see why later in the video, but I kept coming back to this idea. And pretty soon, it turned into a full-fledged novel, which later turned into a full-fledged series. Writing prompts can give you all sorts of ideas for writing. You may not use any of them, but they're good for sparking an idea. Next, you can play What If. This is a great game to play because when you're asking yourself what if, you're basically giving yourself an elevator pitch. You're learning to tell people what your story is about before you even have the idea. What if the apocalypse has already happened and this world we're living in is a dream or manufactured? Whoops. What if this happens, that makes this happen, that makes this happen? Come up with the most ridiculous scenarios that you possibly can. And I promise you, very few things are too ridiculous. Just think about your favorite movies. The premises sound almost stupid, but they come out really good. Like Inception. What if a spy thriller was set in someone's dream? That may not be the best example because that does sound kind of cool, but it does sound ridiculous, especially if you've never seen Inception. Next thing you can do is keep an idea binder. If you hold on to whatever idea comes to the top of your head, writing them down can help you take them in further directions. You can always come back to it and look over it again and again and again, and maybe one day you'll see an idea that sparks something new, something that you'll really get excited about. However, I suggest the exact opposite. Don't keep an idea binder. I am a firm believer in what Stephen King says when he says that an idea notebook is a fantastic way to immortalize a bad idea. When you have all these book ideas, you're going to have a few bad ones. In fact, I go as far as to say most of your ideas will be bad ideas. Most of my ideas have been bad ideas. And when you write them down, you're giving yourself an excuse to revisit it. You're gonna come back to it again and again and again, and one day, that bad idea will look like a good idea. It'll look like a fantastic idea. You'll be so blind for your passion for this really bad idea that you will convince yourself that it is a good idea, and you will waste your time writing it. Stephen King, myself, don't write anything down. We let it sit in our unconscious mind, go on with our daily lives, and if it's a good idea, it will come back. It will come back again and again and again until you realize, this is probably what I should be writing. Chances are, it will look like something you don't want to write, but maybe the book that you don't want to write is the one that you need to write. I have forgotten more bad ideas than I could ever count, and hopefully, all that remains are good ideas. The next thing that you can do, kind of related to the last thing, is keep a dream journal. I've seen this work for a number of different writers. First of all, a quick science on dreams. When you keep a dream journal, you are more likely to remember your dreams in the future, and you will have more dreams because of it. More vivid dreams. Dreams are a great source of ideas. They're your unconscious mind coming up with the most ridiculous things. Keep on writing those dreams down and you'll see some really crazy stuff that you just might turn into a book. Real quick caveat on everything I have said. Do not write your book about the first thing that you think of. I've said it before in a previous video, but the first thing that you think of is unoriginal. Something you've already seen, something you've already heard. You may not remember where you've seen it or where you've heard it, but your more original ideas are usually buried in a more subconscious layer of your mind that comes out the more and more you try to think of ideas. You remember just a second ago when I accidentally came up with the plot of The Matrix? I actually did that. Before I sat down to film this video, I tried to think of an example, and what you just saw was exactly what I said to myself. My reaction was my exact reaction. It was the first thing I thought of, and it was not original. Real quick caveat on that caveat, don't let a familiar premise keep you from writing your book. Some famous book out there somewhere said there is nothing new under the sun. Everything has been done before. Nothing you're gonna come up with is gonna be truly original. Therefore, if you've thought about it a lot and you really think you're onto something, don't let a familiar story keep you from finishing your book. This exact thing happened to me when I was working on my series, The Light Thief. I was sitting down at Starbucks working on my book when this girl sat down next to me and started talking to me, asking what I did. I told her about my book, and she said that it sounded like The City of Ember. I have heard this a lot the more and more I get my book out into the world, and it's solely because the book takes place underground. The more she talked about it, the more I saw similar things to my book, and the more it actually scared me from finishing my book. Thankfully, this girl was incredibly sweet and gave me the most wonderful encouragement, and what she said is more or less what I'm about to say. It doesn't matter if your story is similar to another. At the end of the day, your characters are infinitely more important. The theme is more important. How your story makes other people feel is the most important thing. Even if the premise of the story is similar, you can put a new spin on your book that presents it in a whole new light. So don't let that be an excuse from writing your book. Write down the idea, study it, see if it's good, and then write it. If you try out these ideas long enough, I promise you, you're gonna come up with a killer idea for your book. That's it for today, guys. Thank you again for joining me. I'm looking forward to seeing you again. Have a great day and get to writing.